Hello and welcome to another knife review. Today we're looking at a Rod Olson knife. It's the M9. Rod Olson is from Canada and has been making knives since 1979. He was a silversmith by trade who transitioned over to custom knife making. Rod Olson likes to use button locks, which this knife has. The beauty of button locks is that you get this free gravity fall and they're just as smooth as can be. Not a lot of knife makers use the button lock, unfortunately. Another Canadian maker, Brian Ty, uses a button lock specifically with one of his lighter models, the TIE Fighter. The small TIE Fighter comes in a 3-inch blade. I'll put a picture of it up here in this corner. It's a great knife. It's one of the knives that's on my grail list to get. Spartan Blades makes the Palace, which is a button lock. Hogue Knives makes a button lock. And there's a custom maker, Alan Oleszewicz, who uses the button lock on some of his knives. On this particular knife, the knife has a blade length of 3 1/4 inch, a handle length of 4 1/16 inch. It has a total knife length of 7 1/8 inches and a weight of 3.2 ounces. I have some knives here for comparison. First is the Medford 187 flipper, which is a little larger. Next is the Zero Tolerance 0900, which is a bit smaller. The Lion Steel TRE is a little smaller. The Emerson Traveler is about the same size. The Boker Urban Trapper is a little larger. The Browse Bionic 2 is a little smaller. And then the Browse Insight is a little larger. The blade on the Olson M9 is made of RWL34. This is a steel that's from Sweden. It's made in a drop point configuration, and the blade has a satin finish on it. The blade has a high hollow grind and has some slight swedging on the front aspect. There is no jimping on the posterior spine, but it really doesn't need it. The method of deployment is by flipper. It flips really well. As you can tell, I'm not using my wrist at all. The flipper tab is done very correctly. It's placed well ahead of the pivot, and that gives it a great deployment angle. As you can tell, the deployment angle is about 75 to 80 degrees. The handle is a non-skeletonized titanium handle. On the clip side, it says Olson Canada. I don't know if you can appreciate there, but that's what it says. There's a lanyard hole at the end of the handle for those of you lanyard people. As you can tell, the clip is made rounded to accommodate the lanyard hole. And the advantage of the button lock is that a knife maker can make both sides of the scales identical with the exception of the inclusion of a clip, so that it has a symmetry that other knife lock styles can accommodate. The pivot runs on, look at that pretty custom pivot in the shape of a cross. Yeah, but it runs on the STBS bearing system, and the lock, as I've mentioned, is a button lock. The beauty of the button lock is that it allows it to free fall, and it locks up really solidly. No blade play side to side at all. I'm going to show you how the button lock works. Here you can see the inside. There is a notch that is notched in the blade tang, and then when it rotates, it comes across the drum of the button lock, which pops out. The button lock, there is a spring in this side of the handle which forces the button lock out to engage, and then whenever the knife rotates, the blade tang keeps it in until you reach the end of it, and then it pops out again because there's another notch, and the notch serves as a detent, which is very strong. You can't shake this knife out, but it flies out nicely and locks up firmly. The pocket clip is a surface-mounted spring clip. It's tip-up, right-hand carry only. The ergonomics of the knife are fine. It's easy to get a 4-finger grip on this. One of my complaints is that the flipper tab impinges a little bit on your finger. I can't completely complain about that because I love it when they place the flipper tab well forward of the pivot, but that means it impinges on your hand a little bit. I'm going to give you an example of a knife maker that did it maybe a little better. The browse blade still gets a good deployment angle, but where the first finger goes, there's a recessed notch, and the flipper tab just comes around and smoothly makes part of that notch, so your finger is not impinged upon at all, and you get right up to the end of the handle there. That's the Browse Bionic 2. Here is the Browse Insight, and he has the same idea. Whenever the handle of his knife ends, it's contiguous with the flipper tab so that the flipper tab isn't pinching in on your thumb. Here, the handle goes forward and then the flipper tab comes back, so there's a more abrupt change in the angle there and can be a little hard on your finger, but that's just a very small thing. The action is great. It free falls smoothly, the centering is perfect, the lockup is bank vault. What are my impressions about the Olson M9? The handles could be skeletonized, and as I mentioned, the flipper tab could be more like the Browse Bionic, but there's so much to like about this knife. First of all, I love the button lock. Not a lot of knives use it. I think every serious collector needs one button lock in their collection just to show the style of the lock. Plus, we try as knife owners with frame locks and liner locks to get that free fall shut smoothness, and this knife has it because the button lock by its nature doesn't have a lot of friction involved in the blade whenever you release it. I love it too because the construction is simple. You have one pivot and one standoff in this open design. You also have a free-floating stop pin and the button lock, but is basically held together by one pivot and one standoff. The action of the knife is great. It flips forward well and returns it with gravity. So if you're looking for a custom knife with a button lock, simple construction, and great action, the Rod Olson M9 may be the knife for you. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next knife review video.